Subscribe The Stickman if you want to be smarter than others.
You are standing in a crowded subway car. Someone drops their bag. Papers scatter everywhere. You look down. You look away. Nobody moves, and somewhere in the back of your mind, you assume someone else will help. But the real answer to why you just did that is far stranger than you think. It has nothing to do with kindness. It has nothing to do with how busy you are. It has everything to do with a switch buried deep in your brain, one that flips the moment you become part of a crowd. Think back to the last time you were in a large group of strangers. A concert, a train platform, a busy street corner. Did you feel more like yourself or less? Most people, if they're honest, say less. You felt smaller, quieter, almost like a single drop of water in a much bigger wave. That feeling has a name. Psychologists call it de-individuation. It simply means the loss of your sense of personal identity when you become part of a group. Your name disappears. Your responsibility disappears. What's left is just a body in a crowd. In 1968, two researchers named John Darley and Latané ran an experiment that would change how scientists understood human behavior forever. They staged a fake emergency. A person in another room appeared to be having a seizure, calling for help through an intercom. Some participants believed they were the only one who could hear it. Others believed there were several people listening at the same time. The results were almost unbelievable. When participants thought they were alone, nearly all of them rushed to help. And fast. But when participants believed others were also listening, far fewer helped. And the ones who did help took much longer to act. Why would more witnesses lead to less help? Shouldn't more people mean more chances that someone steps in? Here's the strange part. Your brain isn't built to think about everyone. It's built to think about you, specifically in relation to the people directly around you. And in a crowd, your brain quietly performs a calculation. If no one else is reacting, maybe it isn't actually an emergency. Maybe you're misreading the situation. Maybe someone more qualified will step in. This is called diffusion of responsibility. The weight of the moment gets split into smaller and smaller pieces, until each individual piece feels almost weightless. Now picture your ancestors, tens of thousands of years ago, living in small bands of 20 or 30 people. Everyone in that group knew everyone else. Every face had a name. Every action was seen, remembered, and judged by the same handful of people, day after day. There was nowhere to hide. If you didn't help when someone was in danger, the whole group knew it was you. Your reputation, your standing, even your survival, depended on being seen as someone who showed up. That world shaped your brain. For most of human history, the group and people who know you were the exact same thing. Anonymity, as you experience it today, simply didn't exist. But something happened. Around 10,000 years ago, humans began settling into larger and larger groups. Villages became towns, towns became cities. And for the first time, people started living surrounded by faces they would never learn the names of. Your brain, however, didn't get the memo. It still runs on ancient software. Software built for tribes of 30, not crowds of 30,000. So when you're surrounded by strangers, part of your brain still searches for the social bonds that used to exist in every group you were ever part of. It searches, and it finds nothing. No names, no history, no one watching you specifically. And in that gap, your sense of personal responsibility quietly slips away. There's a darker side to this too. In 1971, a psychologist named Zimbardo ran what became known as the Stanford Prison Experiment. College students were randomly assigned roles as guards or prisoners in a fake prison. Within days, some of the guards, ordinary students with no history of cruelty, began behaving in ways that shocked even the researchers. Zimbardo later argued that anonymity was one of the biggest factors. The guards wore mirrored sunglasses and uniforms that hid their individual identities. Stripped of their personal identity, they started acting less like individuals and more like a role. This is the same mechanism, just turned up to an extreme. When the group erases your individuality, it can erase your individual judgment along with it. Crowds can make people kinder when the group identity is, we look out for each other. But crowds can also make people crueler, or simply numb, when the group identity is, no one here knows who I am. Here's where it gets even more interesting. Researcher Stanley Milgram, famous for his obedience experiments, also studied something called the stare effect. In one experiment, his team had people stand on a busy New York sidewalk and stare up at a building. When one person stood and stared, very few passers-by looked up. But when a group of 15 people stood and stared at the same spot, almost everyone walking by stopped and looked up too. So crowds don't just make you less responsible, they also make you incredibly easy to influence. Your brain, when surrounded by others, doesn't just ask, is this an emergency? It also asks, what is everyone else doing? And should I be doing that too? In a crowd, your own judgment quietly takes a backseat to the judgment of the people around you, even if you've never spoken a word to any of them. Think about the last time you laughed at a joke in a movie theater that you wouldn't have laughed at watching alone, or clapped because everyone else was clapping, or stayed quiet about something you disagreed with because the whole room seemed to agree. None of that is weakness. It's an ancient survival instinct, quietly steering you. The same instinct that once kept your ancestors moving together as a unit when a predator appeared in the grass. There's something almost comforting in this. The reason you feel invisible in a crowd isn't because you're a worse person than you'd like to be. It's because your brain is running a program written for a world that no longer exists, a world where the group meant safety, identity, and belonging, all at once. But knowing this changes something. Once you understand that the crowd is silencing your instincts, not because the situation doesn't matter, but because your brain assumes someone else will act, you can override it. Researchers who study bystander behavior have found a surprisingly simple fix. If you ever need help in a crowd, don't shout, "Somebody help me." Point at one specific person, say their description, their jacket color, anything that singles them out. The moment a stranger becomes an individual again, in their own mind, the diffusion disappears. Responsibility snaps back into place. And on the other side of that, if you're ever standing in a crowd and you notice something is wrong, but you're waiting to see if anyone else reacts, remember that everyone else might be doing exactly the same thing. The silence isn't proof that everything is fine. It might just be 30 people, all individually deciding to wait for someone else to go first. So the next time you're in a crowded space, and you feel that strange sense of shrinking, of becoming just another face in the room, pay attention to it. That feeling isn't really about the people around you at all. It's the oldest part of your brain, quietly trying to find a tribe that's no longer there. And maybe the next time someone drops their bag on a crowded train, and you feel that small hesitation before you move, you'll recognize it for what it is. Not indifference, just an old signal, flickering in a world it was never designed for. The question is whether you let it decide what happens next, or whether you do.